If love is a skill, let me practice on you. If love is a skill, I've got so much practice to do. If you, if you love is, if you practice on, if you love is, if you, if you love is, if you practice on, if you love is, if love is a skill, let me practice on you. If love is a skill, I've got so much more loving to do. If love is a skill, let me practice on you. If love is a skill, I've got so much practice left to do.
I think we're in. Welcome to Femme House Backstage Pass. And this week, before the holiday break, we have a very, very special guest, Julia Fugazy, who is oversees all things Bedouin music since 2021. Got her master's in music business from the University of Miami and has held various roles across marketing, social media, and arts management for major festivals since 2016. And she is only 26 years old, which is insane. Welcome, Julia.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Good to see you.
So I thought we would walk us through your origin story, understanding you're born and raised a New Yorker and spend part of the year in Ibiza. How did you get to this point at the young age of 26? Is incredible.
Yeah, well, my parents, I was raised around a lot of music like you. My mom is a Deadhead. So I was raised around Grateful Dead, and I started listening to electronic music pretty young. And I grew up right
How did
outside
you
of
discover that? Because
YouTube.
I raised by Deadheads, I did not find electronic music until I left I flew the coop.
Honestly, it was mostly I was on YouTube a lot. Like I remember coming across like Skrillex YouTube back in middle school and it just did it for me. Um and
Oh, and how was your mom like, did she get it or
I
what?
think she got it because she followed the Dead for so long. Like she traveled and like followed them for years. So when I started doing it, she was like, "Great, do it." You know?
Incredible. Okay, sorry, I want to you continue. I'll come back to that point, but I want you
No,
to
yeah,
continue.
it was mainly YouTube though, for sure, like UKG videos and old Skrillex videos, but I fell in love with it pretty quickly. I started going to shows in New York pretty young. Would take the train in, go to Webster Hall, go to Terminal 5, PlayStation Theater, which used to be Nokia, which I think has another name now. It was also Best Buy at some time. But yeah, I got really into like dubstep a lot. I followed this one big DJ who's no longer
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
so we won't mention him, but I followed him for like nearly
Okay, so
30
that scene, it's so interesting that you say that though, because that sort of was my parents' entry point. I went to a rave with, well, I went to my partner started Snow Globe Music Festival, and so I took my parents and that artist that was playing, and my dad was like, "Oh, if I was born now, I'd be a raver and I'd be taking Molly." But it's like everything else is the exact same as
exactly.
like being a deadhead. Like that was really that group specific, that DJ specifically was sort of his through line.
Exactly. And my mom used to go to his events with me because I traveled the world. Like, I went to Mexico. I went everywhere in the States to follow him. And my mom came with me a couple of times. And the first time she went, she was like, "This is exactly like
Totally,
a dead gathering. Like, we're doing
totally.
stuff in the lots. We're all wearing like pins and jerseys and whatever." It was, same, different
Totally.
than
Oh my God, I love that this. Yes. Yes.
it's
The through
exactly
line
what it
is so
was.
real. do you see, I mean, I'm jumping around a little bit, but do you see any similarities between, like, I mean, obviously the Bedouin sound is very different, but do you see any similarities between like the cultivation of that community and like that I guess like sort of sound and like what they're doing with their visuals and and in a similar way to like the cultivation of the Deadheads?
Yeah, I mean, I think particularly with the former community I was a part of, it was like spot on. I mean, like so much comparison, so similar. He was like the Jerry Garcia, like very, very
Totally.
much so. I think with house music and with a lot of, Bedouins fans, a lot of it has to do with the Burning Man community, which I can't speak too much on because I haven't been to Burning Man, but I've spent a lot of time with people that have gone to Burning Man, and that sense of community is very much there. I've never seen anything quite like the dead community or the other community I was part of, but the sense of community is still definitely there.
Yeah. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So take us back. So you're a young kid in New York, you're raised by Deadheads, you started going to see electronic music.
Yeah.
So how did you end up in this massive
So
program?
the pivotal point for me was actually when I went to Coachella in 2013. It was for my 16th birthday. I was like, my parents didn't want they knew I didn't really want to have like a sweet 16, so they're like, you can take your friends on a trip anywhere. And they made the mistake of saying that because I was originally supposed to go to Ultra that year, but someone sent my mom the video of the girl making out with the tree. So I was no longer allowed to go. But the person that sent my mom that ended up going that year. So then my mom felt guilty and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go to Coachella. So it took me and my two best friends and my mother to Coachella in 2013. I saw that DJ that I followed for the first time. I was 15. It was a couple weeks before my 16th birthday. And it just did it for me. I had been to like Bamboozle and Warped Tour growing up. I listened to a lot of like pop punk music growing up and Blink-182. I'm still a huge My Chemical Romance fan, so I spent a lot of time going to Bamboozle and Vans Warped Tour as a tween with this like my friend's mom used to take us, but
Like the
um
coolest queen I know. This is insane. I was like not anywhere near as progressive in music.
I think growing up in New York makes it a little easier. But yeah, I went to Coachella and I remember I just was like, this is it. Like this is what I want to do. I remember coming home from that trip and like getting back to my parents' house and going on my laptop and searching like best colleges for music festival organization and best colleges for
You
it
knew
was
this
all
at
about
15?
festival. I
You knew
was
to like you knew to even think about this like that. Okay,
nervous
I
about
because
it.
most people are like this is a life-changing experience. They go to their first major festival. That's, whatever. We've all had that. But then to go, okay, there must be an industry behind this at the age of 15. Okay, how do I get into that industry? This is incredible, Julia.
That's immediately what happened. And granted, all the results that came up were like Stanford and like USC, and like I'm smart, but I'm not that my grades were not there. So I was like, what am I gonna do? Because I can't get into these programs for sure. But I also started volunteering immediately, like as soon as I got back, for this company called Lifebeat. I don't know if it's still around, but it's a nonprofit. It was at least a nonprofit in New York City. It was Lifebeat Music Fights AIDS, and what we did literally was go to venues and festivals and hand out condoms. Literally, that was my first job in the music industry, and
How
it
did
was
you find that
great.
job? Through your Google searches?
No, one of my girlfriends from high school, she was involved in the same DJ cult that I was in, and she had started volunteering for them because you didn't get ID'd. That was one of the biggest hurdles that I had going out here was there's a lot of times where I would, get turned away or like have to pay a security guard to get in or like do something sketchy. Like for like this is a huge 360 for my life, but Bedouin plays at Pasha now. When I was a teenager, there was a Pasha in New York City, and they
Yep.
used to have under 18 events, which were parties from like 7:30 p.m. to like 10:30 p.m. And I used to go to those and then hide in the bathroom stall and stand on the toilet for it to turn into the nighttime club. So it was crazy when I started working at Pasha now in Ibiza, but you know, working for Lifebeat got me into the door, literally, because I didn't have to get ID'd anymore, but also, you know, I didn't have to pay for all these event tickets anymore. And I really got to meet a ton of people through somebody that worked at Lifebeat. I got my first like paid music industry job when I was 18 at Mysteryland, which is a festival up in like Woodstock. It doesn't happen anymore, but I was a box office supervisor there. Um, I did a lot of odd jobs like that. And then at college at Florida State, I started working with a local event promotion company, and we started a pretty big brand. And it was called Tech Yes, and we were doing tech house parties. This was like
What year is this?
late 2015,
Oh, yeah, that's ahead of the curve.
so yeah, it was before people were getting super into it. We did Chris Lake's Black Book tour before he was
What?
like, yeah, that was one of my first big bookings. I booked him to do the Tallahassee stop. I think we did Jacksonville, I ca- maybe Tampa and Orlando, and I think we did one in like Georgia, maybe. But yeah, it was before there was like the big tech house, movement. We yeah, we had Will Clark, we
Oh
had
my God.
Justin Martin, Sheba San came through a couple times. But yeah, I started that was my college experience. I also interned at 3 Points when I was in college. And then, yeah, that takes me back to New York City where I worked at Knockdown Center, where you just sold that out so hard. That's how I knew when Tyler was like, yeah, Leah, isn't sure if it's gonna sell. I was like, no, it'll be fine. Just do it. I was like, book it, book
Oh
it.
my God, I was gonna be so mad at my team. I was like, this is gonna be so humiliating. There's gonna be nobody there. Why are we doing this? Yeah, that was mind blowing. So you worked there and
I
after
worked
college.
That was my internship, my first big internship in college. I think it was summer of 2018. I was their marketing intern from like May to September whenever I went back to Florida State. And then my boss there, Andrew, who's a great mentor of mine, he works at 1111 Music Group now in
Yeah.
Denver.
Oh,
Managed,
with Ben Baruch?
uh, he works with David, I think. I think
Yeah,
Ben
okay, but yeah,
in
Ben
there.
started that. Wait, this
He
is
is the now one of the managers for Disco
okay,
Biscuits.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
11
and
so
he's great.
Ben from 1111 co-manages my Dead House project because he's like kind of
Amazing.
yeah. That's
Amazing.
like he has Goose and
Yeah, I think Andrew works on Goose somewhere
yeah,
too.
yeah, they work together on that, yeah.
Yeah, he was the marketing manager at Knockdown Center. He gave me, my first like real opportunity in New York City. I mean, like, work handing out condoms was real, but like, working at Knockdown Center was awesome. And then it just happened to be when I graduated from college, Andrew was moving on to his next job. So they just hired me right out the bat. But then COVID
So you
happened
got a job in the music industry right out of college.
a couple months after. I graduated in May. I started working with them in August. But yeah, I
That
did.
is incredible. Okay.
Great. It was great. But then, COVID happened.
Oh
Um,
yes, what year is this now?
so that was August 2019 is when I started
Oh
full time with
wow.
them. And I started full time with them. They're great, and when I was an intern, actually, they hadn't even started Basement yet.
Wow.
And when I was an intern starting Basement, was part of the things that I worked on. And then when I came back, Basement was in full flow, and now Basement's incredible. It's crazy what that
I
place
didn't
is
even
doing.
know. Yeah, I was like trying to do a photo shoot downstairs before the show, and these
Um,
guys came out. They're like, "Sorry, you can't be doing this. We're having a show down here." And I was like, "What do you?" I was like, I'm the show. So what are you talking?" I was such an abrasive bitch, and they're like, "No, there's a different show going down here." And I was like, "What?" And then I
and
went into the
no
room, like,
pictures allowed.
no, and it's so cool. I had no idea that thing existed. What?
Yeah,
So what is the vibe there? This is the
it's
basement of the Knockdown Center, by the way, for
the
anybody.
Basement of the Knockdown Center is like a true techno club. It's run by these two amazing people, Taya and Gega. They're from Georgia, like in Eastern Europe. So they have a really strong understanding of like true techno community, I think. And they've really programmed it to be something beautiful. I think it like sells out every weekend now. It's a really great space for so many different types of parties. There's a lot of queer parties there. There's a lot of music that ton of people in the States have never heard before. So it's really turned into something incredible.
It's incredible. Okay,
Yeah.
so you are working for the Knockdown Center. COVID's about to
What
hit.
happens? Obviously, the first thing that you don't need is a marketing manager because there's nothing to market. So I got furloughed, and at first we all thought this was going to be a 2-week thing. That didn't happen. And a lot of my friends that worked in the industry, we were all like panicking, and I just, some of my friends had to turn to another industry for a period of time to make money, and I, thank God, had moved home, so I didn't have to pay for rent or anything. So I decided to enroll in University of Miami's program to get my master's, and I got a great opportunity to go. They gave me a nice scholarship, so I could afford it, and I still have loans. But it was a great thing to do during the pandemic because I was able to, stay in this industry and expand my knowledge and my experience, and also really figure out that marketing actually wasn't what I wanted to do. And neither was event production. So yeah, I did that. I
I started it. My first job in the industry was did marketing for another Planet Entertainment in the Bay Area. So I marketed the Independent and the Fox Theater, and I kind of looked around me and I was like, oh, it's so interesting. All the women in the industry are in marketing, and all the dudes are bookers and managers.
Yeah,
And
right?
like, how do I get over here? It was, I mean, before I
How do
decided,
we cross the
like,
line?
it seems like there's more power over here. So I'm excited to hear your journey into how you ended up as in management.
Yeah, honestly, I'll be completely honest. Like, I don't think I was that good at marketing. Like, I
I
could
was fucking
figure out,
horrible.
I could figure out like I understood like running Facebook ads and like demographics and stuff like that, but it wasn't my forte for sure.
I did not
But
have passion in it. Yeah.
yeah, I wasn't that into it, and I always was like, how do I want to work with artists. Like I want to be with the artist before they get to the venue. Like, how do we get there? It's really hard to figure that out.
Dude, it's hard to even, I mean, this is, it's like when you were taking your, when you were at Miami, is this where you learned about like the different roles and the different like, how did you even, I mean, I'm sure working obviously at the Knockdown, you understand what a manager is and all that, but like,
yeah,
it is hard to figure out how to get in there.
yeah, definitely. I mean, also during the pandemic, I was, forgive me, but I was throwing like illegal warehouse raves. That's very anti-COVID, but like underground warehouse raves in Brooklyn. So through that, I was booking like with agents and management while also doing grad school. So I was like learning about everything on the back end in grad school. And yes, in grad school, I had a class that was like specifically about tour management, for example. I had a class that was specifically about publishing, one about copyright, which is all stuff that I would have never, ever, ever learned about. And that's only, you know, people that learn about that stuff are industry lawyers or managers. Like, there's no other way to
Yep.
learn this stuff unless you're a lawyer, a manager, or you take a grad school class like this, but there's not a lot of programs for music business really. So yeah, I think while I was in grad school, I kind of was figuring out like, oh my God, I really hate copyright. I'm never gonna be a copyright lawyer. Like, I think I figured out, okay, I don't like recorded music either. I don't want to do record label stuff. Of course I love recorded music, but I don't like the process
For
of it.
sure.
Like,
Yep. Oh yeah.
royalties and all that stuff
Couldn't
kind
agree
of
with you
drives
more.
me.
I'm an artist and I feel that way.
Oh my God, like label managers, God bless them.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah. It's
I
so much.
can't stand it. But yeah, I think it kind of just, it started. I had known before grad school, like towards the end of my career with Knockdown Center, I was like, I really don't think marketing's right for me. And I started to feel like, when I was spending time with artists and in the green room or with their managers, like on calls and emails, I was more intrigued by that. So then by the time, I was in grad school, I kind of had a pretty clear vision. And I got really lucky with this Bedouin stuff.
Yeah, how did like okay, how did this We're obviously big fans of Bedouin over here. I mean, thank you so much for making the remix. Did a remix for them, and that was a huge deal for me. So how did this come to be? And can you share more about your role as GM of Bedouin Music Inc?
Yeah.
Like this is Bedouin is like one of the top. Yeah, how did this happen?
It's crazy because I had been branching away from dubstep ever since the cancellation of like my cult leader. I
I'm
like
sure that was
started
really hard.
it was not good. And I was like living in Boulder, Colorado at the time with like all of my like dubstep friends, and we were all just like mourning. It's really sad.
You know, it's sorry, not to harp on this, but I was recently like looking into Bob Weir made some statements about how like Jerry Garcia was so like that, the fans made him God, and
Yeah.
how hard that, like how weird that was for him and for the people around him. And I feel like I've never seen anything happen like that except for with your old cult
That
leader. Like
person.
that's the closest, that's like where people put like literally he was like God to this community. And that's a
Absolutely.
scary role to put somebody in.
Oh my God, absolutely. I think I'll never let an artist have that type of, um I don't want to say power, but like power over me. I've calculated it. I was young. I spent over $20,000 following him. Oh, like I've seen him like 50 times. I've flown. I didn't miss shows. I went to him, like 10, 15 times a year. So I made him very much like my center. I'll never let that happen again for sure. But there's also something very beautiful about it. Some of my
It's like
friends.
church. It is like church for people, and people don't miss it. Every Sunday they go to that, and it's where you meet your community. It's like I do think there's so many beautiful aspects of that.
Yeah, I have some people that are watching this webinar, people that I met through that community. So yeah, it was really tough, but I'm
I just
glad
want to validate how tough that would have
experienced
been.
it. I'm glad I experienced it, but I'm glad it's over. Um,
That actually has probably helped. That like small wall that you were able to put up has probably actually helped you in your management.
Definitely, definitely. Um,
Yeah. Okay. So how did you meet the Bedouin guys? How the
okay,
fuck did this happen?
so there's that website Doors Open, the music industry job posting website.
Oh,
I
I didn't know about this. This is good for people who want to get in the doors open.
Yes, is it open doors or doors open? Someone fact check me. I think it's doors open, but either way, it's a great website for music industry jobs, specifically electronic music industry. Doors
Cool.
open. Doorsopen.co.
Cool.
It's for electronic music industry jobs. I applied to a job on there for the management agency that was called RT agency that Bedouin was a part of. And I applied there as a junior operations assistant. Um it was an incredible process. It was crazy too because I'm a sober woman, and I got sober literally October 7th. I got this interview October 11th, and then I missed the second interview email because I went to my spam. But thankfully, got in touch with them, had like my second interview a couple of days later, I think around like the 21st of October, and I started working October 25th. And it was just like incredible. Like, so many things in my life just started like falling very much into place. It was a very chaotic time for me, getting sober, a lot of things going on in my personal life. And then just getting this job like fell in my lap. And I really think like I'm a firm believer in the universe like taking care of us in a way that is meant to be. And yeah, it all happened very quickly. I started work. I think I got the
I
job, and
would
I
feel
started
like, do you also
like,
think that was the universe saying like you're doing the right thing for yourself? You're like, here, I'm gonna give you
here's the
you're finally
present,
taking care
here's
of
a good
yourself. You
job.
deserve this now. Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah, and
That's
I'm a
incredible.
very reward oriented person. I always have been. Like when I was in high school, I was not doing very well, and one of my teachers told my parents, she's reward oriented. You gotta like hang a carrot in front of her. And they were like, all right, you get straight A's, you get a cat. I got straight A's. I have a cat. And I still have her. She's my this is her, my cat Pearl. Um, so yeah, it was very much, and wow, I'm super into angel numbers right now, and now it's 333 as soon as I lifted up my phone. Like weird spirituality. But anyway, so yeah, I started working for RT literally through a job posting. And it was the team was great. There was more than just Bedouin. That's how I met Blondish as well. I was working on her team, which was amazing for me because working with such a, influential woman in the industry was unreal. It was great. And they also, Virgil Abloh was a client. I unfortunately never got to meet with him. We were actually supposed to have like our first meeting the week that he died. It was crazy. Like I had a meeting on my calendar for the end of the
Wow.
week to have a Zoom. I was like, wow, that's crazy. And no one, like I had no I mean, I had just started working for them really. I had no idea he was sick or anything. Um, but yeah, it was a great company, and I got promoted to assistant manager pretty quickly by the time February came along. Um, and by that time they were working with Blondish and Bedouin mainly, and then some other smaller rising talent. Um, and they sent me to Ibiza for my first time, and then you know things just change, and the guys ended up leaving the company. Blondish left a couple months before. The guys ended up leaving the company, and there was then no more clients there, and thank God Bedouin asked me to come with them about a month later. And
I huge deal.
yeah.
Because I mean, I obviously have I'm with Jet Management and I love them to death and they do so much. There is no way I could survive without, I mean, I know how much is on your plate. So like, can you share more about your role as GM of Bedouin Music? Like shine some light into what that entails?
Yeah, so basically, my title is General Manager of Bedouin Music Inc. So I oversee all three brands of Bedouin. So there's Bedouin, that's like them as artists. Then there's Bedouin Saga, which is the residency in Pasha, but it's also an international party. We do London, New York, Tulum, wherever. And then Human by Default is the label, which we have a lovely label manager, Leon. But I'm also involved in that. Probably Human by Default, I'm the lightest in, but Saga, I work daily with our amazing creative director, Bridget Armengol, who has been with the guys for almost a decade now. She started
Wow.
off their Saga residency with them in Ibiza at Heart, which is now Club Chinois. Um, she's brilliant, and so basically like my day to day, I do 90% of what a typical manager does. I'm not gonna I'm 26, so I don't have all of the connections and networking and experience as someone that's 35 plus that has, a 20-year industry career. I will say I have been working in the music industry for 11 years now, but I'm not gonna say that I have, all the tools that a more seasoned manager does. And I would say on a day-to-day scale, it involves a lot of, I talk to our lovely agents at CIA and WME daily, and their assistants. The guys are also extremely involved. I'm constantly talking to Tamer and Rami, and I've worked in this industry for 11 years.
Well,
I can say they are by far two of the most respectful men in the industry that I've ever worked in. They value me as an employee. They value my ideas. They've taken a lot of, my advice and what I want to do in the company. And I think, as women in this industry, we face a lot of resistance when it comes to that. And I can honestly say they are awesome.
that is incredible. This is what's so interesting about some insight into, what Bedouin Music Inc. is like it seems like they've set up their company in a more unique way. Like they have a creative director for this thing. How do you see the relationship between artists and their managers evolving in the future? Like it's
Yeah.
seems like there are some artists who are really starting to push the bounds on like what, what the traditional model of manager artist seems to be evaporating slowly. And I think that it's an exciting time for young, innovative, driven, entrepreneurial, folks
Right.
to get into the industry. How do you see this sort of this evolving?
Yeah, I think I think it's super important for artists to have a serious say in what's going on in their career. I mean, on like the pop star level, for example, we've seen nightmares happen with, Taylor Swift and I don't know if I'm allowed to name drop, but but like we've seen it all happen in
Yeah.
music industry news where managers have made decisions and deals that their artists may not know about. And like the tricky part, I think, is artists are so busy. Like, I mean, you know this, like my boys, they're traveling from like Dubai to LA every other weekend. It's like, how are they supposed to get on the phone and make decisions? So, I think there's a lot of there's a lot of decisions that need to, stay as a collaborative thing between management and artists. But there also needs to be a certain level of trust between management and artists where you and I process this invoice for XYZ. If we have some guidelines set out where, for example, in terms of invoices, if something's less than a certain threshold, I'm allowed to process it.
Yep.
And they
Yep.
trust me with that because I'm not buying myself a first class ticket to LA for no reason, But I think that it moving forward, I think artists want to maintain control of a lot of their assets, and that's something that I think the industry lacked in a lot. We see a lot of artists that don't own their catalogs anymore, that don't even own their name and likeness. Like, that's not right, you know?
And also artists seem to be like, I mean, this is to your and Bedouin's, like, this is something I'm really impressed with. You're building worlds, which now makes total sense to me that you would be part of a community building a full world, like there's art, like there's the party and the labels and the creative direction and like it's really a full, I mean, I had the honor of playing a Pasha saga party, and like it, people like there's definitely like the look and like the community that is being built. And I think that is like, the branding around that seems to be like, the vision around that seems to be really important for artists to really have longevity.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, longevity, I think, is key in I think it's really key in an artist's career. And I think it's also so important, I think a huge part of longevity has to do with artists, getting older and no longer wanting to tour as much anymore. And you have to still have a sustainable career. And we all know that you're not going to have a sustainable career based off of Spotify payouts, We're not going to have that.
Totally.
So it's important, for I think another huge maybe controversial point is I think a lot of artist managers are money hungry and they just
Short
are
term versus long term. Yeah.
are farming. I can think of literally 5 major touring DJs right now who are at such risk of burning out in the next 5 years. And I'm like, it is no, I think you're
No,
super smart.
dude. I mean, to my manager's credit, they're like, the only way this thing implodes is if you burn out, and we're getting close. I'm like, oh, we're getting very close. Yeah, it is, dude. The burnout is so real, and that's what I care so much about the industry side, and like speaking to powerful women in the industry side, um, because I feel like a commodity as an artist a lot. I feel like, you have a small window and you have to just go and make people a bunch of money. I mean, including yourself, but still like, your team. And I really feel much better having a seat at the table, at the other side of the table, and like being part of these conversations. And it is, yeah, it's a trip to, it is a trip to feel like you're, you have a small window and you're a commodity, and it doesn't feel great.
Yeah, and I think it's important to lay a foundation that isn't reliant on touring. I mean, everybody should have learned that lesson when COVID came around. I
Dude.
every time I see like these DJs that are like playing in Bali one day and then they're in LA the next day, and then they're in Paris. I'm like, what are you like I actually find it to be very irresponsible of their management and agents. I don't think it's healthy. And
I heard, the first time I even thought like, oh, I have a choice in this is I was talking to, does Steve still work on Bedouin in Europe?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So Steve also is one of my agents, and he was telling me that Bedouin won't do, like, they rarely do, they try to not do back-to-back shows, or like if they have a travel day, like it's just to travel, or like there was like there was some rule
Yeah.
of health around that. And I was like, wait, what? They can make that rule? Like,
Yeah,
didn't
it's,
even
it's
occur to
so
me.
they do definitely play back-to-back shows, but it like okay, so after Saga, for example, we don't play Thursdays ever in the summer. We Thursdays are a no-go day for booking. Um
It's
it's
incredible.
not it also just affects the quality of the set.
Dude.
They're gonna play tired. Listen, I mean, I might be biased, but I think all their sets are amazing.
No, they
So,
are. They are.
but you're never your best when you
Yeah,
haven't slept for 24 hours.
dude.
I
Dude.
trust me, I might be sober now, but I had my benders, and I'm telling you, I'm able to do stuff normally because I'm not staying up for like 3 days in a row. And I think it's really important. Like it's sleep is so important, and I think it is absolutely. I mean, listen, there's a lot of these young DJs that are, in their early 20s. Fine, you got a little more oomph in you to tour
Totally,
like
totally.
Thursday through Sunday, and
Yeah.
you're playing Thursday night, Friday, Saturday during the day, Saturday at night, and a Sunday day party.
Yeah.
Fine, you can do that for like 2 years maybe, but still, like, it's not gonna last, and you can't
No,
be reliant on it.
no, I know. How do you actually build a real business? Oh my God, this is I just fucking love you. Okay, so we only have a few minutes left, and then we're gonna go to Q&A. So if anybody who is listening, if you want to write chat in the Q&A, I will read them, and that's how we can answer questions here. So go ahead and think about that. But I just wanted a few more talking points I wanted to hit. You are so impressive at a young age, and so I want to give you a moment to shine. You're so impressive and driven at a young age. What's something that you're really proud about in your career that you've done so far?
I think the album release with the Bedouin guys was one of it is huge. I've never worked on I literally never did I mean, I managed a small dubstep DJ called Medusa, like as a freelancer during COVID, but I never did like true management like this. So to release a full-length album like that, and their album is
It's rare for a
so
dance artist to even make.
it's not a typical dance album at all. So
Totally.
it was, yeah, it was really special, and like doing the music videos with them um was amazing, and working with the team at the Orchard, and it really forced me to learn a lot, even if I didn't like recorded music stuff. Like, I had a lot of knowledge from my master's program. So yeah, I'm really proud of that release. Um, yeah, and 2 Ibiza seasons down, also really, Ibiza's a beast.
Okay, I was gonna say I would love for you to give. This is something I wanted to touch upon because Ibiza is, or Ibiza, whatever. I can't. I feel so stupid saying that. So I'm
I
just
do
gonna
too.
I feel so stupid. I'm just like, especially with like my Valley Girl accent. Come on. Well, can you try to explain what Ibiza what it is like over there and what it represents in the dance culture for
Yeah.
folks who have never been. Because I've even tried to explain this to my parents, and they came to when I sat in with Pete Tong for his Ibiza Classics at the O2 Arena. Like there were images playing throughout the whole show of Ibiza, and my parents were like, "Whoa, like there's an island where people are all dancing all day and night." Like how do you explain what this is?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an important place for dance music in general. Pasha itself, like
The Mecca.
I don't have time to talk about the
Yeah,
history of
yeah,
Pasha. Please, everybody research the history of Pasha. The building itself is like an old house, and they still haven't knocked it down. Like they just built upon it to expand it. It's absolutely
I didn't
insane.
even know
Like
that.
it is such
Whoa.
an important spot for electronic music in general, and but also the island has so much more to offer than clubbing. And I went there for the first time. I had like 7 months sober, and I'm in a program for it, and my mentor in the program, she told me now, she was like, I was so nervous when you went over there because I thought, how is she gonna survive? But the island has so much more to offer than just partying. If you respect the island, it will respect you. A lot of people lose themselves there because they get caught up in the drinking and drugging, and that's absolutely not necessary to have fun. I did like about 50 days there this summer, and didn't, I don't touch a drink or a drug ever. And I had an
I
amazing.
love hearing this. I actually love hearing this because I feel like every time I go to Ibiza, I leave just slightly more dead. And this is awesome to hear that there's another way.
Yeah, there's absolutely another way. And the island has so much more to offer than just music. Like the beaches are unbelievable. The food is unreal, the culture, the locals, the shopping, all the flea markets, like it's such a beautiful island. And if you're there for, 10 days, sure, go clubbing 5 of the days, but don't kill yourself and be hungover the whole time. Go explore the island and like really understand the culture of it and the people that are there. And there's these Ibiza characters that have lived there for years, that you'll get to know and see if you see them around. And they're just so important to the
I love
culture of the island.
so fascinating. Okay, so my last what let's end here, I guess. What advice would you give aspiring music professionals who are just starting? Which I feel like you have a lot of trinkets of knowledge, but it
Yeah, I have I there's a couple things I always tell people. Um, One is if you feel like you're struggling to balance the party and work life, and you're struggling with drugs and alcohol and you don't know like how to balance that, like reach out to people. There's plenty of programs within the music industry, like Music Cares is a huge one. And there's plenty of sober women like me, and I'm part of a music industry support group for this. So if you're struggling with that, like you're not alone in it. And I think it's so important. I see people struggle with it constantly, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. Another big one I tell people is don't clout chase. It's not worth it. Like the thing that's gonna make you the coolest is like working your ass off and like showing people like what you can do. Nobody cares, if you're friends with the headliner, it's cool. But like, what's really it pains me when I see, you know, young women trying to, put on this facade, when I'm like, if you want to work in this industry, like there's ways to, you can do this. You don't need to like diminish your value. Um, and yeah, I think another one that I tell people a lot is always be kind. You never know who you're talking to. The
or
amount
who
of
they're gonna
times
come. Yeah.
the amount of times that I've had people, not only am I 26, but I'm small. And people like do not realize like the position that I hold. And, I've had a lot of women too, men and women, be extremely rude to me. It's like, you never know who you're talking to. First impressions mean everything. And that ties right into the clout chasing. I'll be in the booth sometimes and get like bullied by somebody, and I'm like, those are my clients.
Yeah.
So like I had this young woman one time like really push me, and then someone told her like, oh, she's like Bedouin's management team, and she came up to me and was like, I'm so sorry, like I want to work in this industry. I'm like, it's gotta be nice,
Yeah.
take the shitty jobs that you might feel like are below you. I started off handing out condoms at Webster Hall, you know? Don't You're not too
I
good for
love that
anything, you know?
so fucking much. Oh
And
my God. We do have a question in the chat. Julia, are you open to scheduling an informational interview? I'm trying to get into artist management. I've not had any luck so far. Do you do any sort of mentorship, or is there a way for people to contact you? I mean, I know that I want to respect your time and that you are extremely busy,
I am a
but
busy
what,
girl, but I think I owe a lot of my success to my mentors and the people who gave time to me. And even to this day, I'm calling people that are managers that have years beyond me. So I'm always happy to, extend the knowledge that I do have. Yeah, definitely.
And then we also have another, your insight, this is from Jovi. Your insight and story is so inspiring. Thank you for sharing. I'm currently 24 and navigating sobriety in order to be present and sustainable in the industry while being a DJ and an event producer. Shout out to that. What are some tips, tricks you have for staying regulated at events and overcoming pressure from peers using substances to stay true to what's best for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I'm in recovery. I do identify as an addict and alcoholic, and that's just who I am, and I'm not ashamed to speak about that. There's a lot of people that, don't share that, but I wear it on my sleeve and I think it's important. So for me, I do a 12-step program that I am very involved with. I'll be going to a meeting in a couple hours tonight. I spoke at one last night. So for me, I do have to be part of a 12-step program, but if that's not quite your speed, something that really helped me early in sobriety was having a sober companion come with me. Somebody that I could rely on and also be sober so I don't feel alienated. Also, like, keep in mind, the only people that care about how much you're using or drinking are people that also have a problem. Like, that's a
That
tough
is
thing I had.
100% true.
That's a tough thing I had to realize. My girlfriends still now, I'll be like watching them babysit a glass of wine. I'm like, are you gonna drink that? They're like, you are the only person that will ever ask me how quick I'm gonna drink my wine. So, it might feel like you're feeling pressure to do drugs or alcohol, but the only people that are pressuring you to do that are people that also have issues. And also something that really helps me when I see people that are like in a K-hole, I'm like, I don't want to look like that. I'm sorry, or like someone that's been like, it used to be me, doing like a ton of cocaine and staying awake. When somebody talks to me like that, it gives me like a sign like, oh my God, I don't need to ever look like that. So, take a breath. I meditate a lot. I pray. I'm spiritual. I don't have a religion, but spirituality is huge for me. So if I'm feeling like what I call squirrely at a show, take a moment and, pray to myself or whatever my higher power or universe is that day and get
And
through
also,
it.
Jackie, I think it's like, even just to piggyback off of that, I think that it is no coincidence that you became sober and then you really landed the role that, it was a huge bump in your career. I'm sure there are a lot of things at play there, but like I think that it set you on the right path. And so I hope that story in general, maybe can be a reminder for you. And Jovi, keep going. I think it's awesome you're doing what you're doing,
Abs-
especially being a DJ and event producer in this world.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I think we're gonna wrap up there. This will be this interview chat, fireside chat will be on our website. This is femhouse.com. This is Julia Fugazy, who is a young mentor to me and has opened a lot of doors for me in the world that I want to be in. So I'm so grateful to get to sit down and chat with you and learn more about your story, and that we are definitely two sisters from different mothers, because I have so many similarities to parallels to your life. And yeah, thank you for being an inspiration to Femhouse and myself.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Everybody have a good day. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.